Hello, everyone in Southwest Idaho and anyone else who might be listening in. This is a worldwide web and all. This is Terry Shifley from the Boise Church of Christ, and I just wanted to send out a brief message of encouragement, a video Barnabas note, if you will. I just wanted to remind everyone that no matter how dire things seem to be, our God has not forgotten us, our God is in control, and our God has a plan for his people. Just think, we've all been washing often and social distancing and under quarantine for around 40 days so far. For most of us, it's driving us stir crazy, and it's only been a short time. But think of the Israelites. They wandered around in the wilderness for 40 years. Before that, they had sojourned in Egypt for over 400 years. Much of that time was spent as slaves to the Egyptians. As slaves, they probably weren't allowed to worship together as they were accustomed to. They probably weren't allowed to just hang out with other Israelites, God's people. Sound familiar? They probably missed out on weddings, funerals, birthday celebrations, and many other social type gatherings. But all the while, God had a plan for them, even before they became slaves. God had a plan for them, and God has a plan for us, his church. He still has a mission for us, to reach the lost. And I want to encourage you not to let the current state of affairs deter you from that mission. Right now, we may have a little bit more creative, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Listen to these words from Isaiah 61. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of prison to those who are bound, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, to grant to those who mourn in Zion, to give them a beautiful headdress instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, the garment of praise instead of a faint spirit, that they might be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified. God can use us in the same way, to bring good news to the poor, to proclaim liberty to the captives, to comfort those who mourn. Our mission hasn't changed, although our method of delivery may have changed a little bit. Speaking of that, you may have noticed that your church's website is more popular than ever. Our church website has had more hits recently than ever before. We even have had more people watching videos on our website in the last 3 or 4 weeks than, say, the last 3 or 4 years. We've had to learn new technology, like Zoom. How many of you had regularly used video conferencing as a way to keep in touch before the quarantine? It has offered us a way to keep in touch with those far away. It has offered us a way to stay in touch with shut-ins and the sick. It's not without its challenges, though. I have found that coordinated singing through Zoom is a very challenging proposition. In our homes, I've noticed that we've all wanted to be more involved with our kids' homework, although this isn't exactly what we were thinking. In our churches, I've also discovered that planning an effective worship service takes a lot more preparation and coordination than what we may have previously thought. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Videos have to be planned and recorded ahead of time, unless you can successfully do that live thing. One of the things I've noticed about making videos is the ability to edit out the parts you don't like and the parts that don't belong there. You have the ability to restart a recording if there's a mess up. If there's time, you even have the opportunity to re-record a certain portion to make it better. I couldn't help but think that we have the same abilities in life. Now is a perfect time to edit out the parts of our lives that aren't right, the parts of our lives that we don't like, the parts of our lives that God says doesn't belong there. We also get the opportunity for a restart or a do-over, a new beginning when we mess up. When we turn to God, he says that he will blot out our transgressions, will not remember our sins. Remember when Jesus encountered the woman and people were ready to stone her. And after a short time that they'd all been dismissed, he turns to the woman and asks her that, does anyone condemn you? And she says, none. And he says, neither do I. Now go and sin no more. You see, through the blood of Jesus, we get the opportunity to start all over. We get a chance to restart the video. And I don't know about you, but for me, this is a great reassurance. And just recently, we celebrated the fact at Easter. We may have been separate and apart, but we were together in celebration. With that in mind, I'd like to end by reading you a poem. This poem was written by a woman named Christy Bother, with a nod to Dr. Seuss, she says. She posted it on her Facebook and has had over 1 million views and has been recorded many times on YouTube. If you've already heard it, that's fine. I think it's worth repeating. It's called How the Virus Stole Easter. 'Twas late in 19 when the virus began, bringing chaos and fear to all people each land. People were sick, hospitals full, doctors overwhelmed, no one in school. As winter gave way to the promise of spring, the virus raged on, touching peasant and king. People hid in their homes from the enemy unseen. They YouTubed and Zoomed, social distance and cleaned. April approached, and churches were closed. There won't be an Easter, the world supposed. There won't be church services, egg hunts are out. No reason for new dresses when we can't go about. Holy Week started, as bleak as the rest. The world was focused on masks and on tests. Easter can't happen this year, it proclaimed. Online at home, it just won't be the same. Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, the days came and went. The virus pressed on, it just would not relent. The world woke Sunday and nothing had changed. The virus still menaced, the people estranged. Pooh-pooh to the saints, the world was grumbling. They're finding out now that no Easter is coming. They're just waking up. We know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open for a minute or two, and then all the saints will all cry boo-hoo. That noise, said the world, will be something to hear. So it paused, and the world put a hand to its ear. And it did hear a sound coming through all the skies. It started out low and then started to rise. But the sound wasn't depressed. Why, this sound was triumphant. It couldn't be so, but it grew with abundance. The world stared around, popping its eyes. Then it shook. What it saw was a shocking surprise. Every saint in every nation, the tall and the small, was celebrating Jesus in spite of it all. It hadn't stopped Easter from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the world, with its life stuck in quarantine, stood puzzling and puzzling. Just how can this be? It came without bonnets. It came without bunnies. It came without egg hunts, cantanas, or money. Then the world thought of something it hadn't before. Maybe Easter, it thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Easter, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, the story's not done. What will you do? Will you share with that one or two or more people needing hope in this night? Will you share the source of your life in this fight? The churches are empty, but so is the tomb. And Jesus is victor over death, doom, and gloom. So this year at Easter, let this be our prayer. As the virus still rages all around everywhere, may the world see hope when it looks at God's people. May the world see the church and not a building or steeple. May the world find faith in Jesus' death and resurrection. May the world find joy in a time of dejection. May 2020 be known as a year of survival. But not only that, let it start a revival. Well, that's it. Thanks for listening. May God bless you, and through you, stay safe.